Ever since a NASA spacecraft met up with an asteroid, it's been busy circling Bennu millions of miles away from Earth.
OSIRIS-REx launched from our Space Coast back in 2016, and it's currently in the middle of a 7-year sampling return mission. And now the team is ready to reveal an important milestone.
So joining us now to talk about the big announcement today is UCF physics professor Umberto Campins, who specializes in asteroid study. So tell us a little bit of background for people who don't know about OSIRIS-REx and why this is so exciting.
Well, NASA picked us to build and launch the spacecraft. We launched it from Kennedy Space Center 3 years ago. It arrived at the asteroid a year ago, and we've been mapping it since and trying to understand all about the surface and pick the ideal spot for the spacecraft to be able to make the sampling safely. And originally, we thought we would have long, flat areas where there would be no rocks, and the navigation team would be able to bring the spacecraft easily onto the surface, pick up the sample, and head back to Earth. It turns out that the asteroid is a lot rockier than we expected. So initially, the navigation team said, we need an area 150 feet across to bring down the spacecraft safely. And quickly we told them there's no such place, and they said, oh, the spacecraft is navigating so well that we can do it in half that size. No such place. And then they said, wow. So what do you have? We said, well, the biggest area is about 30 feet across, but it's surrounded by big boulders, as you will see in this visual that was provided by the Canadian Space Agency. So the Canadian Space Agency built an instrument that is on board OSIRIS-REx, and they're part of our team. And with it, they've done a very detailed map of the surface of the asteroid, and it's very, very rocky. But with it, we can select which of these areas are most appropriate for the maneuver. And so right now there are 4 areas that we've narrowed it down to 4.
Okay, we're looking at them on the screen. If you look at the screen, you can see and describe what we're seeing.
So look at how rough that surface is. So that's 10 meters, about 30 feet across. And that is where we need to bring the spacecraft safely. And this is another one of these 4. That's another 10-meter crater in it. But look at the sizes of those rocks around it. As a matter of fact, this one on the right, we call it Mount Doom from Lord of the Rings, because if we were to hit that rock, that would be the end of the mission. So we have to be very careful. So we've changed the way in which the spacecraft is going to approach the asteroid. Initially, it was just going to have an altimeter that told it its height. It was going to come down. But now the navigation team has changed this completely, and the spacecraft is going to go down to the primary and backup site and map them in detail. And as if it descends towards the site, it's going to be comparing the images that the camera is taking with the ones in the map. And if it's going towards the right part, it will continue. If it needs to make corrections, it will make them. And if it looks like those corrections are not enough and it's headed towards one of those rocks, it will wave off and try it again. So it's been a much more complicated approach process than we thought, because Bennu has given us these surprises.
And now when you go in and take the sample, this is a 5-second grab,
correct?
Right? So what can we get in 5 seconds? What are we going to learn when it finally makes its way back here? What are we hoping to learn?
We're very excited about what it's going to bring back. But the main scientific justification for this mission is to bring back organic molecules that may tell us how life formed on Earth, how it may have formed on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, and maybe in planets around other stars. So the origin of life here on Earth and elsewhere is the main scientific reason for the mission. The main practical reason for the mission is because this asteroid is potentially hazardous. Let me explain. It is not threatening Earth right now, but it may do so in another 160 years. So if we have to deflect it, we need to know as much about this asteroid as possible. Hopefully we will not have to, but as individuals, we don't have to worry about this. The chances of this asteroid or another one hitting Earth while we're alive are basically none. But as a society, we must, because impacts big enough to wipe out civilizations have happened, and they will happen again unless we deflect an incoming asteroid. So we should learn from the dinosaurs and not be too complacent.
Yeah, we don't want to be the dinosaurs. How big is Bennu?
It's about 5 blocks across,
Okay.
but an impact from Bennu would create such a large weather change. It would produce a winter that would last several years. All the crops would fail, and civilization would essentially collapse.
my
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and this would be from the equator to the poles throughout the planet. So we don't want that.
No, we don't.
And in the process, we're learning a lot about the origin of asteroids, about the origin of our solar system, and hopefully about the origin of life and water on Earth. And eventually, we will be mining asteroids like this one to produce fuel for Earth orbiting satellites, for missions to Mars, etc. So the commercial use of these objects is not that far off.
And the big announcement, 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. All right.
Yeah, and at the American Geophysical Union meeting in San Francisco, they will announce which of these 4 sites will be the primary and which one will be the backup.
You already know though, right?
Yeah.
I have a favorite, but I don't think that's the one they're going to pick.
I love that you have a favorite. All right, well, thank you so much for being here. We hope you'll come back and visit us and keep us updated.
Yeah, the sampling is happening in August of 2020, and if something else comes up, this asteroid is always surprising us, so it's been a delight.
Oh, well, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
My pleasure.